Our finalists are set in the European Champions and Challenge Cup. The Pacific Four kicked off with a great game in Kansas, and South Africa and New Zealand are crowned your Sevens World Champions for 2025. Hello and welcome to your Rugby Roundup with Big Mike here on the 7th of May 2025. I am Big Mike. Here is Big Mike Sports. Now let's talk some rugby. On this week's episode, we have those big semi-final clashes from the Champions and Challenge Cup. Super Rugby, Major League Rugby, Japan League 1, they all continue and they're all getting a lot closer to those finals. International Women's Rugby brought us the start of the Pac 4, and we have an action-packed LA Sevens to report on. Looking forward to this weekend. We have the return of all those club competitions in Europe, as well as New Zealand taking on Australia in women's rugby. But enough of all that. Let's get to the roundup. We are going to start with international rugby and women's rugby. So, the Pac 4 kicked off on the weekend. It was the USA hosting Canada in Kansas. I watched this game. It was exciting, and Canada got the victory 26-14. That starts the USA's 2025 World Cup year with 2 losses so far. First to Japan, then to Canada. In the other international game of the weekend, it was a warm-up game for Australia for the Pac 4 as they took on the Fijiana women's team in Fiji. After the Dua game, this one finished Australia 43, Fiji 7, giving Australia some lovely momentum before going into the big one this week against the Black Ferns. And for last weekend, that is it for international results. Now, there were no club games for the URC Top 14 and Premiership, as all of those competitions were represented in the semi-finals of the Champions Cup and Challenge Cup. Now, the Champions Cup semi-finals gave us some huge upsets. Let's start with Leinster, who won their round of 16 games 62-zip and won their quarterfinal 52-zip. They ended up going down to Northampton, the Saints, avenging their loss in last year's semi-final to Leinster. This one finished 37-34. We had Northampton go up 27-15 at halftime, and Leinster could not quite catch up to where they needed to be. They got close but couldn't do it. The frustration was evident all over the Leinster players, who now only have the URC to play for. Our other semi-final saw our top 14 teams, Bordeaux taking on Toulouse. Now, in the top 14 this season, Bordeaux had won both games, and they made it 3 from 3, upsetting the fancied Toulouse 35-18. Now, Toulouse do have a couple of injuries, but no one expected the victory to be this much to Bordeaux, our finalists in the European Champions Cup, representing the Premiership Northampton and representing the top 14 Bordeaux. Now, our Challenge Cup semi-final saw 2 results that we were expecting, as Bath, top of the table from the Premiership, downed Edinburgh. This one was 39-24. In the other semi-final, a top 14 clash, Lyon defeated Racing 92. This one finished 29-15, so the final of the European Challenge Cup sees the Premiership's Bath taking on the top 4 teams, Lyon. Both finals being England versus France, no URC teams represented anymore. In Japan League 1, Division 1, round 17 of 18, the second to last round of games. Let's start with our big three game. It was the top of the table clash between the Kubota Spears and the Saitama Wild Knights. This one finished 29 apiece. In the other big game, the Mitsubishi Dynaboars went down to Toshiba Brave Lupus 45-28. What this means is the Spears have dropped down to third, and the Wild Knights and Brave Lupus have the same points of 66, 2 points ahead of the Kubota Spears. Thanks to points differential. No, scratch that, it's not points differential, it is due to wins. Toshiba Brave Lupus are currently sitting on top. It'll be a big final round for these three teams. In fourth place, we have the Blue Revs, who defeated the Yasu D-Rocks 62-52 in the highest scoring game of the weekend. We also saw the Kobe Steelers beat the Cannon Eagles 47-29, and with Suntory Sun Goliath beating the Black Rams 43-34. Sun Goliath have confirmed that they will take the sixth and final spot from Cannon Eagles. In the other game, Toyota Verblitz getting nearly out of that potential relegation zone after a 38-30 win over the Honda Heat. Big results in Super Rugby Pacific last weekend. The Blues defeated the Force 40-19. The Drua got an upset victory at home against the Reds 36-33. Hurricanes, who were sitting in fifth, still are, defeated top-of-the-table Chiefs 35-17. Thanks to the fact that the Crusaders had a bye, the Chiefs are still on top thanks to points differential. Third place Brumbies stay in third place after a dominating 40-17 victory over the Waratahs, who have dropped down to ninth. And in the final game of the weekend, the Highlanders hosted Moana Pacifica. And MP won this one 34-29, leaving them in sixth position with just 4 rounds left. The table looks like this. We've got the Chiefs, Crusaders, Brumbies, Reds, Hurricanes, and Moana Pacifica in the top 6 of Super Rugby Pacific. Major League Rugby results, round 12 of 17. In the big one, we had the New England Free Jacks downing the Houston Sabercats. This one finished 36-17. We also saw the Seattle Seawolves and RFCLA have a 26-all draw. Old Glory DC defeated the Utah Warriors 28-12. Chicago Hounds doing well again after a 14-7 victory over the Miami Sharks. And the San Diego Legion beat NOLA Gold 45-36. What this means, Eastern Conference is led by the New England Free Jacks and Chicago Hounds. And a bit further down the table, we have Old Glory DC, NOLA Gold, and Miami Sharks. Anthem RC dead last. The Utah Warriors are now top of the Western Conference, followed by San Diego, Houston, and RFCLA, just 2 points ahead of Seattle. Super Rugby Americas, we had Dogos defeating Yakare 39-29. Penarol went down to Tarukas 35-28. 78-18 was the final score as Pampas rose to the top of the table by destroying the bottom of the table Cobras. Our top 4, we've got Pampas, Dogos, Penarol, and Soccer. Now, watching the USA-Canada women's game, I learned about a new competition called WER, Women's Elite Rugby, which is a brand new semi-professional competition in the US of A. Most of the top American players do go off and play in the English Premiership, so they want a homegrown competition to nurture their stars. It is a 6-team competition with some of the worst names I have ever heard, such as the Bay Breakers, the Boston Banshees, the Chicago Tempest, the Denver Onyx, the New York Exiles, and the Twin Cities Gemini. All of their logos look like it was done, or like they were done, on Microsoft Paint. So, after about 6 rounds of action, the Onyx are top of the table, followed by the Exiles, Breakers, and Banshees. Bottom of the table, with only 1 bonus point and 6 losses so far, are your Chicago Tempest. Now, I don't know if you saw this week's post on Instagram and X, but I talked about, or I did a little thing on the momentum teams with wins and losses over club rugby, or over men's club rugby. And interestingly, we have Bath, biggest momentum at the moment, with 10 wins on the trot. On the other side, Anthem RC and the Dragons of the URC have both had 11 losses in a row. Now, most interesting are the top 14 teams and the Super Rugby Pacific teams. Only 2 teams in these competitions have had more than 2 wins or losses in a row over the past few weekends. I did include European results in this, which knocked Leinster down also. The Kubota Spears and Wild Knights would have been mentioned up the top. However, they had the draw on the weekend. Now let's look at the LA Sevens results. This was the World Championship round of sevens for the 2024-2025 series. It was a top 8, and then the bottom 4 from the 7 series faced off against the top 4 from the Challenge series to see who would make it into the comp next year. Let's start with the big one. In the final, South Africa defeated Spain 19-5. These teams finished 4th and 3rd on the table this season. Argentina, who finished top of the league, came 4th after losing 38-17 to New Zealand. This is the men I'm talking about. Apologies if I did not say so earlier. Okay, in our playoff pools, remembering that Kenya, Uruguay, Ireland and the USA were defending their spots. The USA and Uruguay qualified first in their pools and will keep their spots to the next series. Then, in the playoff finals, Canada could not quite take the spot off Kenya. This one was 24-5 to Kenya, who will remain in the top flight. In the other game, there was no sign of Ireland, who didn't manage to win a game at all. We had Samoa taking on Germany, and in one of the big shocks, Samoa did not win. In fact, they didn't even score any points. It is Germany moving on up to the big time, 2025-2026. All right, for the women, as is customary in women's sevens, the final was Australia versus New Zealand, and New Zealand won 31-7, league champions and world champions. In the game for 3rd place, Canada, who came 4th in the league, defeated the USA, who came 6th. This one was 27-7. Unfortunately, France, who did finish 3rd in the league, did not do well in this competition at all. Now, playoff teams. We had Brazil, China, Ireland and Spain defending their spots. Brazil and China qualified automatically. Ireland, again, men and women, could not even get into the playoff finals. It was Spain winning over Argentina 28-0. They keep their spot, and in the other game, to take Ireland's spot in the top flight, Kenya versus South Africa, the Kenya women's team won 17-14. Absolutely fantastic weekend for Kenya Sevens. Now just a quick little thing on Mike, Big Mike. If you want to talk to me in any way, how about we look at Big Mike Sports NZ, YouTube, Instagram, and X. Yeah. All right. Now, quick fun fact about my life. After talking about rugby PlayStation games or video games a couple of weeks ago, well, I picked up the old Journal on Rugby, didn't I? Gosh darn, I love that game. It is 28 years old and it is still as good as it was when I was a lad. Worst team to be? Wales. At least for the other teams. You know, they've got different skin colours, different hair colours, different sizes. All the Welshmen look the same. They're all called Davies. They're all called Jones. Just a horrible team to be. Best team to be? Obviously New Zealand. Passing it to Jonah, he can fend through an entire team, or over to Goldie, who's a bit faster than anyone else. Give it to Mertz, who can kick it through. Oh, what a game. Anyway, let's look at this week in rugby. All right, let's start with women's international action, the one big game from this weekend. It is the O'Reilly Cup. It is the Pacific Force Series. It is Australia taking on New Zealand in Newcastle. Both the USA and Canada are on their way to our shores, and these two teams will be fighting for the O'Reilly Cup. Now, fun fact about New Zealand and Australia women's rugby. Australia has never won. Could this be the time? The URC is back this weekend, and we have only 2 rounds to go. Looking at the table, the top 4, Leinster, Glasgow Bulls and Sharks, all are secured in their spots. And it will take a lot for Cardiff and the Stormers to fall out of the top 8, as they are on 46 and 45, but it is doable. The next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams are between 38 and 43 points on the table. So we have the 4th place Sharks hosting one of these teams in Ospreys. 2 of these teams are taking on each other, Munster versus Ulster. It is 3rd versus 5th as the Bulls host Cardiff. The Stormers likely going to stay in their top 8. Also, they are taking on Dragons this week, a team who have had 11 losses in a row. Leinster looking to get back on the horse in the only competition they can still win against the 15th place, Zebre. It is Benetton who are sitting in 8th, hosting Glasgow, who are 2nd. Connacht host Edinburgh. Edinburgh can still fight for a spot. Connacht are going to need a whole bunch of things to go their way, as with just 2 rounds left, they are 6 points behind 8th. Final game, Lions are taking on Scarlets. The Scarlets are sitting in 7th. The Lions are in 13th. Again, another team that needs too many things to go their way, and it is highly unlikely. To the top 14, which is in round 23 of 26. A 5th versus 6th clash as Castries hosts Clermont. It is Lyon in 8th, hosting Pau. Lyon are tied with Clermont, who are in 6th on points on the table. Also in that lock, or in that spot, are La Rochelle, who are away to the bottom of the table, Vannes. Vannes, Perpignan and Stade Francais Paris are all within a point of each other, and they will be fighting for, or to avoid, that definite relegation spot in 14th and the promotion relegation game if you finish in 13th. Speaking of, it is Perpignan hosting Stade Francais Paris this weekend. Winner of that one could potentially avoid this completely. It is 1st versus 3rd as Toulouse are away to Toulon. Toulouse will be hurting after their loss in the semi-final of the Champions Cup. Who was their loss to? It was to Bordeaux, who are away from home. They are currently sitting in 2nd, and they are taking on Montpellier, who are in 9th. To the English Premiership now, we have Bath at the top of the table. They are away from home to Bristol, who are sitting in 4th and are getting chased by Gloucester and Saracens. Speaking of Saracens, they are hosting Newcastle. The bottom of the table, Newcastle Falcons. Gloucester are away from home against the 8th place Harlequins. We also have Exeter, 9th place, taking on the 7th place and Champions Cup finalist Northampton. In our other game, it is 2nd versus 3rd, a potential semi-final in the making with only 3 rounds left. We have Leicester. We've got the Tigers hosting Saleh, the Sharks. The Champions Cup and Challenge Cup final will be in a couple of weeks. And by that I mean not this weekend, not next weekend, but the weekend after that. Final round in the round robin of Japan League 1 Division 1. Now the top 6 are determined. Their places look pretty set for 6th, 5th and 4th. However, we have 1st and 2nd place both on 66 points and 3rd on 64. 1st place Brave Lupus are taking on the Cannon Eagles. The Saitama Wild Knights sitting in 2nd are taking on another top 6 team in Suntory Sun Goliath. And the Kubota Spears, who are sitting in 3rd, are going to need a whole bunch of things to go their way. And they're also taking on Toyota Verblitz, who will be fighting to be out of the promotion relegation spots. The bottom 3 teams will be going into those clashes in the upcoming weeks. In 11th, we have the Honda Heat, who will be taking on the Black Rams, who with a loss could also end up potentially in that bottom 3 if the Mitsubishi Dynabors, who are sitting in 9th, beat the D-Rocks, who are bottom of the table. Other game this weekend, we have the Steelers versus the Blue Revs. This is 4th versus 5th, most likely the same game that will happen next week. In Super Rugby Pacific, 3 teams are having the bye. It is round 13 of 16. Most teams just have 3 games left. We have the Fijian Drua hosting the Blues. Blues are sitting in 7th. A win here will do them a world of good. A loss for the Drua, and they are definitely well and truly out. They need a lot of things to go their way, even to get into 6th position. The Waratahs are another team just outside the top 6. But they are hosting the 4th place Reds, who will be hurting and will be threatened, sitting in 4th place with a bunch of teams on their tail. It is a top of the table clash. The Crusaders are hosting the Chiefs. Now, Chiefs currently sitting top of the table, same amount of points as the Crusaders, but the Crusaders have a game in hand. And our final game of the weekend, the Force, who have recently dropped out of the top 6, need a victory, but they are taking on the 3rd place and oh so close to those top 2 Brumbies. If the Brumbies win, they will go into 2nd place over whoever loses out of the Crusaders and the Chiefs. Major League Rugby now. Let's look at the games this weekend. We have Nola Gold hosting the Miami Sharks. This one a battle of 4th spot in that Eastern Conference. Top of the East, big battle. We have the New England Free Jacks taking on the Chicago Hounds. The 2 former form teams of the West, it is 2nd versus 3rd, as San Diego Legion take on the Houston SaberCats. Anthem RC, can they finally get their first victory away from home against RFC LA? Anthem RC, RFC LA. The Utah Warriors are hosting the Seattle Seawolves. And we do have a midweek game next week as Old Glory DC take on Nola Gold. And Super Rugby Americas, Dogos, who are rolling, have a bye this weekend. It is Tarukas versus Selknam. That is 6th versus 4th. Selknam need a big victory as Yakare are chasing them. Yakare will be playing the top of the table Pampas. And in our final game, can the Cobras get their first ever victory this season? Or their first victory this season, against the 3rd place Penarol. To be honest, I'm not going to go into an in-depth look at the WER in the USA because of the ridiculous names of the teams, but every couple of weeks I'll update you with how your Twin Cities Gemini are going. Or as they say in my house, up the Banshees. Up the Boston Banshees. Alright, I'm starting to think the WER is a scam. I just went on the website to look at the merch. Every single link I click goes to a 404 page. Oh no, I've worked it out. There's another website with another shop. Alright, so I looked on all the team sites. For the shop, every team has just their generic logo put on a t-shirt or a hat or a beanie or socks, and no two teams have the same attire, which is fun. Also, if you remember playing the recenty type old cricket games over the last 10 years or so, these logos look like something out of one of those. Or the fake old ones. No, they're not even as good as the fake old ones in Madden. Do yourself a favour and look this up. And hey, if you want some Rugby Roundup, some Big Mike sports merch, let me know. Judging by this, anyone can make a shop. Anyway, as we know, the 7 series is done for the year, so let's look at our big 3 for the weekend. As you've only got time to watch one, follow one, see one, whatever, there's so much rugby on this weekend. Maybe make sure it's one of these guys. Our honourable mentions are the top of the Eastern Conference clash from the MLR, New England versus Chicago, third versus first in the top 14, Toulon versus Toulouse, and a potential local elimination match in the URC as Ulster take on Munster. Now my real big 3, the top ones. Quite simple. I'm being a bit basic this week, folks. We've got from the Premiership, it is second versus third as the Leicester Tigers take on the Saleh Sharks. This one could be a semi-final preview, but also might slip the losing team a bit further down the ladder. There are some teams on the tail, but they probably don't have enough time to catch up. Other games I've got, the top of the table clash from Super Rugby Pacific. It is Crusaders versus the Chiefs. Out of all the club games this weekend, this one looks like the big one. Also from the Pacific 4 series, it is the O'Reilly Cup. It is New Zealand versus Australia and Australia. Can Australia get their first ever women's victory over New Zealand in the beautiful game of rugby? All right. Now, apologies about our little detour into the WER. That was wild. Great teams. I might make a rugby competition myself. Bugger it. Anyway, have a great week, folks. There's going to be some beautiful rugby on. Don't tell anyone, but I'm going to a rugby league game. Only because I don't want to go to a Waratahs game. Anyway, I hope you all have a beautiful week and you watch some beautiful rugby.